Update on two tropical cyclones. Well, one tropical cyclone, one invest that will likely become a tropical cyclone. We're looking at tropical cyclone Enawo and invest 96S. We're going to start with Enawo. Let me see, did anyone comment? No, not yet. So currently, this is 12 hours from now. Let's go to now. So currently, the low wind speed estimate that I would do if I was making my forecast for the Facebook page, Meteorologist Without Credentials, which you could check out if you are not familiar with it. When I make the forecast for these storms, I make a low estimate for the strength and a high estimate. Before I go on, there's going to be ads on some website pages. Don't pay them any mind. Can't get rid of them. But in any case, I make a low end and a high end forecast. On the low end, I use this one here. I go over to lower dynamics and MSLP and 10-meter wind. I look here, make sure that it's at the time that I'm forecasting for, the hour that I'm forecasting for. So this is 53.4 knots. So I will go over here, select knots, 53.4, convert. So this is 61.5, so in the forecast I round it, so in this case I would round it to 60 miles per hour. On the low end forecast I lower it down, in the high end forecast I lower it up. I round it up rather. So 60 miles per hour is what the low forecast would be for now. And the high forecast, let's go over here. Cancel. The high end forecast, 71 knots. So I'd go over here, 71, convert. That would be 81, or I'd be rounding it up to 85. So between, what was it? 70? 75, 60? Let me see, what was the other one? Let me go back. 53, I think it was 60. Yeah, so about 60 knots, 60 miles per hour rather, is what I rounded it to. Anyone else joining? Just one person? It might just be myself, I don't know. In any case, so between 60 and 80, let's see, go back here, try again, 71, $85. So between those two numbers the storm is, and you can see here this is currently what it is. So let's take a look over here, bring this to miles per hour, 57, 57, see if we can find anywhere that is within the possible range. Alright, so we have some areas that are 63, 64. So this would be around a 60, 65 mile per hour per tropical storm. So it is within the range. It's more towards the lower range that I would have in this case, but the wind gust could be more towards the higher end of this. One thing I should note now, I am not a professional meteorologist, so any information that I do provide in a forecast should be confirmed by personal research on these tropical cyclones, and you should follow the advice of your local weather service, your local officials who have gone to school for meteorology. I have not gone to school for meteorology, so please, if there is a warning for your area and I do not have a warning, heed the warning that your officials are giving. If I have a warning for an area and your officials are saying that nothing's going to happen, do your own research on these storms and its track and determine for yourself what you will do in the event of a storm. So let's go to 24 hours from now. to the low end forecast. Okay, we were there already. So 98.1 knots on the low end. Let's look at 98.1, I believe it was. Not this one. 98.1. So that would be 112, so I would lower that to 110. So 110 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, I go over here, would be about a Category 2 hurricane. A high-end Category 2 hurricane. And going to the high-end estimate, let's see what that's like, 132.8. 132.8. That would be 152 or Category 4 hurricane. So between a Category 2, high-end Category 2, or high-end Category 4 hurricane, it would be the range that I'd be forecasting. So this is 152, so it would be rounded in the forecast to 155. This leaves for a margin of error on either side. So if it goes a little stronger or a little weaker than the exact forecast, it is still covered there by that little margin that is made. So in this case, more than likely, being that it's between Category 2 and 4, most likely you are looking at a mid to upper Category 3 hurricane, which would be winds of 111 to 129 miles per hour, 50 to 58 meters per second, 96 to 112 knots, 178 to 208 kilometers per hour. I think that's what it is, kilometers. So that would be a major hurricane, which could cause a lot of damage. But let's look over here, in this case right here, even though it has major hurricane force winds in this region over here, these are major hurricane force winds. Right where the white is and goes into the pink, this red and green, well, let me go here, the purple is hurricane force winds. By where you see the white and the pinkish color here is major hurricane force winds. The green all the way into here are tropical storm force winds, and the blue is tropical depression force winds. So let me define that. Tropical depression, 38 miles per hour or less than 38 miles per hour. For tropical storm, 39 to 73. For a hurricane, would include Category 1 and 2 hurricanes, so 74 to 110 miles per hour. Major hurricane would be a Category 3 to 5, which would be 111 miles per hour, and up would be a major hurricane. Is there anyone else here right now? No. I don't know if anyone else is joining left or not. There's no comments right now. But let's now go back to here. And let's look at 42 hours from now. So over here it's getting closer. Also on my forecast on my Meteorologist Without Credentials page, the impact area is based on the high end estimate. So in the low end, it's not showing tropical storm force winds on land yet. But on the high end, you can see tropical storm force winds coming in on this way. And I'm going to show you why, as we go through this model forecast, why I use this as part of my forecast, when usually the storm might be on the weaker end. But I'll show you why in a moment. But anyways, let's continue on with the forecast. 101.7. 101.7. And the reason why I'm doing this is so that way you guys can see how you can look at these storms and forecast them on your own and know what to expect. And this translates the wind speeds that you see over here into the various wind speeds over here. So if you don't use miles per hour, if you use any of these, you can still convert it, and so that way you can know what the wind speeds are equivalent to in your wind speed measuring system. So in miles per hour, that would be 117, so I would lower that in my forecast to 115 for the low end, which would put it at a Category 3 hurricane. a mid-range Category 3. So, and with no tropical storm force winds yet reaching land. Now on the high-end forecast, 136.3. 136.3. Okay, and that would be 156.9 or 100, or I would round it upwards. If it's 5, I'm going to leave it at 155. But if it's 6 or more, I'm going to raise it to the next level. So 160 would be for the high-end forecast, which would put it at Category 5. So between a 3 and a 5, most likely a 4. It's going to likely go right in between, but it could go anywhere between this range. Now, if this is correct, then you'll have tropical storm force winds from this region going all the way down here. If you live in Madagascar, you probably know what regions these are over here. I don't know the names of these different areas, but from here to here, on my forecast I use Google Earth and I try and make an estimate. I look here and I compare and I try and make an estimate, so it may be a little off, but from this region to this region, so this area here, tropical storm force winds. Now, these wind speeds here are sustained wind speeds in the area and not wind gust. So, by using the low and the high end, even though usually it's the low end, you still could get wind gusts that are around the high end's estimate, which could still cause damage. And so, yeah. Alright, so we'll continue on. And I think in the next one we'll see, in the next, when we go to the next couple of hours, I'll show you, which we are in 24 now? No, we're in 42. So let's go to, wait, 42? Hold on. 24, 48, that's really what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, so let's do that again. 107.6, 107.6, 123. So that would be 120 on my forecast. Would put it Category 3. It's probably going to be the same. Between a 3 and a 5, so likely a 4. I'm thinking it's going to be about the same. But let's not assume. Let's double check. 146.7. 168, yeah, that would put it well above Category 5. So likely Category 4 hurricane will be what will be coming around this area here in 48 hours, with tropical storm force winds reaching from here, going all along this way, and over here. So from this island here, whatever island this is, to this area here, to this area here. When I make my forecast and I post the areas impacted, I'd put a city that's over here, a city that's over here, and a city that's over here for the range that will be impacted with the wind speeds. Now let's continue on to from 48 hours to 72 hours. So you can see here with this one, it shows that as it comes in, the winds die out extremely rapidly and it's like hardly any wind over here. But on this one, you could see, although it does have it die out a little bit over here, so this is probably still tropical storm force winds, you can see that this area is still extremely windy, with major hurricane Category 3 or 4 winds coming in on this area here, which is extremely devastating. The hurricane force winds also are very devastating, and the tropical storm force winds, especially in the red zone, is extremely powerful and could cause a lot of damage to buildings. The green can cause damage as well, mostly to trees and power lines and stuff like that. This layer of blue here can cause damage to some trees and agriculture. And this isn't even just the rain. If we look at the rain for this time period, you see heavy rain over here. So not only are you going to deal with Category 3, 4, maybe even 5 hurricane force winds, in this region, but you're going to be dealing with a lot of rain. So this is like over here. So what is this? Average precision rate, millimeters per hour, so 30 millimeters per hour of rain in this region. You can look up online a converter of millimeters per hour and look it up to inches if that is the system that you use. But let's go back over here and let's get the wind speed over here. So for the low end, 107 knots, which will be 123, so 120 miles per hour for the low end forecast. And for the high end forecast, let me move this over here because I keep clicking on it. For the high end forecast, that would be 144 knots or 165. So in this case, I would leave it on the forecast as 165. I would not make it 170, but I would still put it at a Category 5 hurricane. So between, what was the other one? Let's go back. I forgot the other one already. 107. Yes, and when I make the forecast, I go back and forth about a dozen times, trying to keep track of 107, 123. So between Category 4 and 5. So looking at a high-end Category 4, low-end Category 5 is probably what's going to be, because that would be right in the middle of the forecast. Anyone else here? Still one person. If you are here, leave a comment so when I check I could see that someone was here, that you were here. Strong storm. Okay, so let's now move on to, where am I going? We are at 72 hours from now. There will be Category 4 or 5 hurricane force winds reaching into this area. Let's go into this map. Category 4 or 5 hurricane force winds reaching over here. Category 3 hurricane force winds reaching over here. Category 1 to 2 hurricane force winds from here to here and along here. Tropical storm force winds are going to reach from here, all the way to here, down to here, and back down to here. And maybe even further if you're including wind gusts. But for now, that's what the low and high end forecast for 72 hours. Now let's go to 96 hours, I believe it is. I think so. 72. Yeah, 96 hours. Okay, so let's look at the low end forecast, which again, it shows hardly any wind over here, which if you have a Category 4 or 5 hurricane going along the coast, you're not going to have tropical storm force winds over here. You're going to have extremely powerful winds along this whole region. So that's why I don't use this only, because it would be very unreliable. But for the low end forecast, 66.7 knots, 76, or lowering it down to 75 miles per hour. That would be a minimal Category 1 hurricane. In this case, 93.3, which at this point, the high-end forecast would be much more accurate than the low end. So 93.3 would put it at 107, so I would round that to 110 miles per hour. So that would put it at a Category 2. So a low-end Category 2, a minimal Category 1, or a high-end Category 2 would probably put this at a low-end or high-end Category 1, right in the middle is what you would likely see. So still hurricane force winds, not a major hurricane at this point forecasted, but you can see especially over here the strongest winds are forecasted because this is the part over the water, so this part will be stronger. You can see the wind blowing in this direction, so the worst storm surge or flooding coming in from the ocean will be in this region. Actually, let's go back and let's forecast this storm surge. Oh wow, I just noticed. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. Okay, so 72 hours from now, the strongest storm surge. Wow, that's actually really dangerous. So you see the wind is blowing this way, so the water's going to be going this way. There's going to be storm surge over here as well, for sure, definitely. You do not want to be around the coast over here. If you are, I would be heading this way. go away. But if you see the way the wind is going here, it's going to blow this water directly into here. So areas along here are going to see serious flooding. I would even go as far to say 10 to 15 foot storm surge minimum in these regions. With a category 4 or 5 hurricane, easily 10 to 15 foot storm surge easily in some of these areas. Maybe over here it might be lower, like 5 feet. Over here maybe more, 3 to 5 feet. But over here at least easily 10 foot storm surge, as this water is being pushed into here, especially when it gets pushed in, and now it's being pushed in this way. This area here is going to see the worst storm surge. A lot of the backflow is going to be pushed up along here and go along this area and along this area too as it comes in this area here. So this whole region here, really, especially over here and over here and over here. From here, this little area, it's going to get flooded all over here. Over here is going to get flooding too as you have onflow coming in. But that water is going to, as it comes in, it's going to hit this area. This island is going to get a lot of flooding for sure. It's going to hit this area, hit over here, turn around this way, turn this way, and be pushed by the wind this way along here. And if you come along here, follow here, push right in, push right in, push right along here. Some of it gets pushed back in. So a lot of heavy flooding over here. Not just from the storm surge, but from the rain as well, as we said before. We come over here. So over here, still getting storm surge and recovering from the hurricane. Especially over here, the strongest wind should have died down. Although over here, you can still have hurricane force winds 96 hours from now. Category 2 hurricane force winds around this area into here. So storm surge still a problem. But especially over here, probably more so in this region right here, we'll get the worst storm surge at this time. As you have this coming in here, you have this little piece of land here which is going to actually push the water this way and this way. And being that this is low pressure, the water is going to be more drawn here also. So that's going to help push the water this way, making this area more prone to flooding with this storm, not to mention the rain. And over here as well, you'll get some flooding, but more so over in this region. And over here, the water should be starting to calm down around this region. And over here, you should be reaching about the peak or just past peak of your storm surge risk in this area. Remember, even though I'm skipping a lot of time here, it's going to be moving along here. So the water is going to be pushed along here. So this area here is going to get a lot of flooding as this storm moves along the coast. And this forecast very well may change. We see the eye of the storm over the ocean over here. But if this model is off even by a few miles and the storm center stays inland, that'll make a much weaker system. Then the lower end of the forecast would be more accurate. But if it stays out to sea and just follows the coast very closely, it'll maintain its strength of hurricane force all the way through this area and probably down to about here as well before becoming a tropical storm. If it ever does downgrade to a tropical storm, it may stay a minimal category 1 hurricane. But let's move on to the next time frame, 96 hours, so 120. Okay, so over here we don't see hurricane force winds anymore in a low estimate, 53.6. And it's showing absolutely no wind over here, pretty much non-existent. But, as you probably already guessed, that's farthest from the truth. You have the eye of the storm right over here, so you probably have at least strong tropical storm force winds in this area. We're going to check the high estimate in a minute, but 53.6. Let's put that in. 53.6. Keep hitting the enter button, but it doesn't do anything. But I keep clicking it anyways. 61.7, so 60 mile per hour tropical storm. So high end tropical storm. Let's go over here to the high end, and yeah, it's still showing hurricane force winds. 73.0, so 73. That puts it at 84. So 85, which would put it at a moderate Category 1 or a high-end tropical storm. So you're looking at a minimal Category 1 hurricane or an upper tropical storm, probably leaning more towards a lower Category 1 hurricane at this point of the forecast. So you can see here, as far as on land, the hurricane force winds are going to be scattered and isolated. Primarily over here is what it's showing. But out to sea, there's also going to be hurricane force winds right in this region. There's probably going to be hurricane force wind gusts that will come on shore. But over here, still going to have a lot of wind. The storm surge should have subsided mostly over here. Almost completely. Over here it should be subsiding a lot now, but over here is now the area getting storm surge. It's relatively flat, so the water should spread out fairly well. Over here is a little area that might get more so because of this little thing here. I don't know if you can see it, but that might make flooding a little worse in this area. But with tropical storm force winds, probably 3 to 5 feet, maybe 1 to 3 feet. I'm not a storm surge expert. Again, I'm not a meteorologist, so you might want to check with your officials on what they expect. But hurricane force winds possible in some areas scattered about, but most likely tropical storm force winds, I'm gonna say from a little bit above this map, so probably about here to here to here, which is a large storm when you think about how large that wind band can be. This is showing tropical depression force winds. I believe when I checked it's because there's some dry air coming in over here, which weakens hurricanes. Plus, it's a very mountainous region over here, which weakens hurricanes as well. So that may very well be true. But even though this is showing vastly tropical depression force winds, there may be pockets like we see over here, and we can't see over here, so we don't know if there's pockets over here of strong winds in these areas. But for now, what we do know, this area will still get heavy winds in 120 hours, and this area along the coast will probably still see strong winds from here all the way up and somewhere off the map. And storm surge will still be a risk, and rain. Even though the winds have died down, rain will still definitely be a problem. Let's see what the rain is looking like. Yeah, heavy rain over here, lighter rain over here, but it might be intensified. I'm tired, it's 11 o'clock at night. Intensified by some of the mountains, so there could be mudslides and rock slides and stuff like that as a result of heavy rain in some areas. There may be even a risk of tornadoes in this system as well as it comes in contact with land. Tropical cyclones do have a history of producing tornadoes. But let's move on. We have 2 more frames to go through. In this one, this is the low end estimate. This is probably a subtropical cyclone at this point. I don't think it would be a purely tropical cyclone, but nonetheless, you can see it's starting to curve out to sea. 68.2 knots. Let's put that in here. 68.2. Again, I hit the enter button even though it does nothing. 78, so I'll round that to 75. That would put it at a minimal Category 1 hurricane force winds. Again, with the wind speeds blowing this way, this area might see an increased storm surge. These areas, even though the wind has died down, do not go to the beach. You will still have rip current risk. It's not a good idea, so don't do that yet. Okay, this one makes it a lot bigger and a lot more scary. But again, let's look at the estimate, 94.9. 94.9. That puts it at 109, so 110. So high-end Category 2, low-end Category 5. So in between the two, either a Category 1 or 2 hurricane, high-end Category 1, low-end Category 2. Hurricane, probably subtropical cyclone. So what that means is it's a system that has tropical cyclone characteristics and non-tropical cyclone characteristics. A bit of both as it starts to transition, especially after being disorganized here and coming back and redeveloping. The system may change its the nature of the storm. not the intensity. You could see the hurricane force winds still reach pretty far, not to land. It might be hurricane force wind gust over here if the high-end forecast holds true, but tropical storm force winds are still impacting land over on this half of Madagascar, and especially over here, strong tropical storm force winds. This would be about 68, 60, 62, 62 to 64 knots. So let me see what that is. 71, 73 miles per hour. So about 70 mile per hour winds over here, which is still enough to cause some minor damage to buildings, and or at least to the roofs and to the shingling, and also to trees and power lines. Can cause a lot of damage if there's any poorly built houses in these areas, maybe poor neighborhoods. They would suffer a lot more. Plus the rain is probably still coming ashore. Let's check out what that looks like. Yeah, not as much. Maybe heavier pockets over here. A lot of heaviest rain is out to sea. So that's good. The rain should be letting out. Also at this point, the storm surge should be letting out in many areas. Maybe some over here might be a problem along these areas over here up to here. And over in these areas, the storm surge should be gone. Maybe still some rough seas if you did go by the water. But I would not recommend going swimming or anything like that until the storm is at least a number of days out. Maybe 5 to 7 days out would be best to eliminate rip current risk. Now, rip currents can happen regardless if there's a hurricane, so I'm not saying that when there's not a hurricane there are no rip currents, but hurricanes do increase rip currents, so do not go immediately after. Oh, it's sunny out today, we had a hurricane yesterday, let's go to the beach. No, not a good idea. 168 hours from now, so 7 days, the wind should be completely out to sea. Maybe some strong winds left over in some areas along the ocean, but for the most part the wind should be out. Let's look at the low and high end forecast. 55.8, 64, so that would be 60 rounded down. So that would put it at a mid-range tropical storm, high-end tropical storm, mid to high-end tropical storm. High-end range 79.7. That would put it at 91.7, or a upper category 1. So we're probably looking at a low-end category 1 with that forecast in 7 days from now. Again, you can see that the eye is very large now. It's starting to sort of fall apart and spread out a lot. That's what I mean when I say that it would transition a bit, change into a different nature of storm. It still has hurricane force winds, so still if you are out in this part of the ocean, or if there's any islands over here that are not being depicted that have people, the winds are still strong, don't get me wrong. Hurricane Sandy was a subtropical cyclone when it made landfall in the northeast United States, but it was still one of the most powerful storms that we have on record. So, still a very powerful storm, regardless. So, and then after that, we'll just play it out. It'll eventually weaken out, get disorganized more, so maybe organize a little bit more, and then eventually die out. So let's view this forecast in total by the high-end estimate. Strong hurricane coming in, maybe making landfall for a short time, going back out, re-strengthening a bit while changing into a subtropical cyclone, then sort of breaking apart and weakening. If we look at this from the low-end perspective, now it's a hurricane. Now it's probably about a category 3 hurricane. Now it's back to category 1 tropical storm again. Category 1 hurricane, tropical storm, and tropical storm, very weak tropical storm. So that's what's forecasted by that. Let's see what the rain will look like on this storm. Very heavy rain over here as expected by the eye wall of the storm. You have the outer bands, comes by land, gets disorganized by getting disrupted by landmass, comes back out and disorganizes, and eventually the rain dies out. Now let's see relative humidity. This plays a big role in tropical cyclones. Very humid, moist air, that's what's keeping it strong. It's land interaction starts to weaken it. Dry air is starting to come in, especially over here. That's what probably drives the change in nature of the storm and keeps it from developing any further out there in the ocean. Okay. What else should we check? Simulated IR satellite. So this is, okay, let's move out of here. Let's go to the global and GFS. No. Regions. Indian Ocean. Okay, so over here we could see an idea of what is forecasted for the cloud cover of this system. So you can see a strong system comes close to Madagascar, starts to get disorganized. As it does so, still remember the winds are still going to be pretty strong. As it does so, here we go, we have it developing. Hurricane, major hurricane, comes in, makes landfall, gets disorganized. Winds are still strong though. Don't get misled, the winds are still very strong over here. And it heads out. It gets broken apart and spread out in different areas. Of course, you can see here thunderstorms here and here, so even though the storm may be moving out and getting ripped apart, you can still have strong thunderstorms over here, maybe even tornadoes if the storms are still rotating. Let's see, are they rotating? There is some rotation in the general vicinity, so definitely possibly a tornado risk, especially if it's warm, which it should be if you have a hurricane coming in. Right, okay, so now we have the next one, Invest 96S, which this one we're going to be quick because I'm really tired. It's almost 11:30 right now. The low end estimate by this point in time close to landfall, 59.1. 68, so that'll be 65. That would put it at tropical storm force, which we can see here. We don't see hurricane force winds. And over here we have 81.3. That'll make it 93.6, or upper category 1. So we're looking at a upper tropical storm to a lower category 1 hurricane. And if we go here, we'll check this out as it makes landfall. Okay, so right around here, 79.5. 91.5 miles. I'm here, Mom. No. I'm doing a live stream now. Okay. So 79.5. That'll put it at 91.5. So we're looking at a high-end tropical storm. I didn't let them out yet. That's alright. To a mid-range category 1 hurricane, which will be making landfall in Australia. If you go over here, 88.4. It actually has a little bit stronger as it makes landfall, so it might intensify right before making landfall. That'd put it at 101, which would be category 2. So mid to upper range category 1 is what I'm actually expecting to hit Australia in about, impacts will begin well, tropical storm force winds are already hitting some of these areas, but let's see. Okay, stronger tropical storm force winds in about 6 hours. It should be an organized tropical cyclone by this point. So within 12 hours, we should have a named storm and pockets of Category 1 hurricane force winds around the edge. So maybe around here, if it's a little bit further back than what the model shows. We go along. Hurricane force winds will start in about 30 hours around here, with strong tropical storm force winds around here and mild to moderate tropical storm force winds starting as early as now and going over the next 12 hours. And the storm will continue 36 hours. By 42 hours, only pockets of Category 1 hurricane force winds with a wide area of strong tropical storm force winds and mild to moderate tropical storm force winds elsewhere. And we go along. So maybe in this region, stronger winds maybe up to Category 1 hurricane force. Now only tropical storm force, mild tropical storm, and now tropical depression. And now the thing doesn't even know where it is anymore. So we're looking at probably a Category 1 hurricane, maybe Category 2 at the absolute most, making landfall in Australia in about 36 hours. So in about a day and a half, we should see a landfall. If we go to the rain, let's see what this looks like. Let's move this back. Slow this thing down. It comes over here. Strong rain coming in. Heavy rain. Rain starts to die out. Storm dies out. And the storm is done. So this should all transpire within, let's see, when will this officially die out? So within 72 hours, most of the storm should be done, and by 96 hours, it should be completely dead. Within about 96 hours, so that would be 4 days. So we have from now to 3 to 4 days before this storm ends. So we have within 12 hours, impacts will begin in some areas. It'll be a named storm within 12 hours, and it will die out within 72 to 96 hours from now, probably between that time. 78, yeah, but so around 72 hours more so. It should no longer be a named storm. It might even be downgraded before then. Around 60 hours or 66 hours. But definitely by 96 hours, we should no longer have a system. It should be over. We should be done with it. We'll be able to say goodbye. So if you have friends in Madagascar or northwestern Australia, northwestern Australia, please go to my page, Meteorologist Without Credentials, and share my forecast on the storm, and share this video as well, and you can let them know at what point I talk about their area. This is a pretty long video, so I'm surprised if anyone has come in, if anyone has stayed. I think this one is just myself. If anyone is watching, thank you for sticking, whoever you are. But yeah, this storm, these two storms are what I'm watching right now. There are other invests that are out there right now, but it is 11:30 and I must head to bed now, as I suspect that they will develop into significant systems. I will post them on Meteorologist Without Credentials Facebook page, and you could share them to give the warning to your friends and family. The reason why this video takes so long, I show you how I predict the wind speed, so that way you can be able to forecast a storm yourself. Look at the information. I'm just using available resources here that you can access yourself. tropicaltidbits.com, earth.nullschool.net, wind speed unit converter, Wikipedia for the wind speed scale And if your local area doesn't use the Saffir-Simpson scale and you use something else, then you can look up that one as well to see what the wind speeds are for the different categories for the system that your local area uses. With the wind speed converter, if you don't know what miles per hour are and you use something else like meters per second or miles per second, whatever that is, I think it's meters per second, you can type it in here and see what it equates to. So thank you for watching. If you didn't watch during the live stream and you're watching it now when it's a video, thank you for watching. If you did watch this whole video, I would be surprised. I don't know why you're still watching this, but if you are a very strong-willed person and very into meteorology, I would think. But again, thank you for watching. I will be heading out now. I'm going to bed. So please, as always, whether severe or mild weather, stay safe and stay updated. I am not a meteorologist, so any information that I have provided at any point should not be viewed as, prophecy or anything like that. Please confirm it by your own local meteorologist. I did not go to school for meteorology. So my knowledge is very limited on these storms. I'm just stating what I see on the graphs that you could look up yourself. So please do your own research, and by the time you see this video, or even while I'm live streaming now, if I haven't refreshed the page, the forecast may have changed, and quite dramatically. I remember I forecasted a storm not too long ago. I forecasted it to hit one region. Within the next hour, it changed to hit a completely different region. So please keep an eye out on these storms. Stay safe, stay updated, and regardless of if a storm hits your area or not, a storm or any natural disaster may strike at any time. So have a plan ready. Have a to-go bag ready, so that way you can be well prepared. If you had to evacuate, know what your plans are. If you have family who are in evacuation areas, see what you could do to help. Check on people who may be elderly or disabled or may have special needs, so that way they can be taken care of during these natural disasters or even man-made disasters that may happen without forecasting. If anything happens like that, we need to help each other, and always have a plan ready to be used at a moment's notice. So again, thank you for watching. You can subscribe if you want to watch more of these videos. I also have other videos like gardening and cooking on my channel, so you can watch those as well. This is going on about 50 minutes now, so at exactly 15 minutes I will finish the live stream.